The Mountaineers and BYU will kick things off tonight late at 10:30 p.m. We're going to talk to the best in the business. That's Phil Steele to pick his brain about this matchup along with some others in college football this weekend here today on ITG.
You are now watching Believe.
ITG.
With special guest, Phil Steele.
Author of the College Football Bible.
He can see things before they happen. It's a Jedi trait.
All you gotta do is bet on the winner and you'll never lose.
Mountaineer Nation.
You are in the gun.
Hey, a real pleasure being on. Thanks for having me on the In the Gun podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the In the Gun podcast. I'm Schuyler Callihan. Flanked with me today is the signal caller, Jed Drenning. And as we do every Friday here on ITG, we get to talk to college football expert Phil Steele to get some of his analysis on the matchup for the Mountaineers, along with some of the matchups in the Big 12 and top 25. Get to pick his brain on what he thinks is going to happen this weekend. But first, Jed, we're going to go and give a tip of the hat here to those that make this show possible.
If you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed on YouTube to In the Gun and to ITG Clips. That's the best way to catch all our newest Mountaineer content hot off the press. And how about a quick shout out to J.R. Toothman and our friends at Toothman Ford? We all know that cars cost less in Grafton. Plus, let's give some love to Fortis and our good buddy Rick Lewis. For roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed, be sure to visit fortis.us.com. And a tip of the cap to Tim Johnston and his awesome crew at Johnston Equipment off I-79, exit 99 between Weston and Buchanan. And finally, the Book Exchange. For a limited time when shopping online at bookexchangewv.com, be sure to enter promo code INTHEGUN20, that's 20, for an awesome savings of 20%. That's right, 20%.
And again, yes, make sure to use that INTHEGUN20 code at the actual stores at the Book Exchange to get your 20% off. I know the Coal Rush is going to be coming up at some point. That's still to be determined when that'll be, True Blue. So make sure to get your gear there at the Book Exchange using that In the Gun 20 code. Everybody loves 20% off. Anybody loves any kind of type of a discount. So if you can get 20%, you might as well take advantage of it. So Jed, let's go ahead and rewind as much as we don't really want to, but let's take a step back to last week in our picks that we made for West Virginia, Utah. How did we finish out?
You cleaned up. First one was, will the Utah offense convert 50% or more on third down? I said no. You said yes. They did so easily. 8 of 13, 62%, well over 50%. The second prop was, will WVU do what no team has done yet this year and reach the end zone against Utah 3 times? I said yes. You said no. One red zone trip. So that didn't happen either. Third and finally, will the WVU defense intercept Devin Dampier?
Nah.
I said yes. You said yes. Of course, we did one time. Nick Taylor played a good football game. He was one of the few bright spots defensively, as we talked about. So, yeah, you got your first 3 for 3. How about that?
I'll take it.
How about that?
That plus a little hot streak in our Big 12 picks too. So I'm liking this. Now, if we can just get some dubs in the column for the Mountaineers, they'll be hitting the trifecta there. But yeah, also to make sure to go take part in our Big 12 pick'ems. It's pinned to our In the Gun podcast Twitter account, X account, whatever we want to call it this week. Try to beat us in our selections. And we also encourage you to maybe even try to beat us here on our ITG picks. It doesn't really come with anything, but maybe some bragging rights. But yeah, you touched on Nick Taylor. I thought he played really well. I think you said the other day it's probably the second straight game that he's played pretty well. And with that secondary, you're just trying to find more guys outside of Jordan Scruggs, Jason Chambers, Michael Coates, Fred Perry. Those guys are talented, but you need to find, as we talked about last week, some guys that have more eligibility remaining. Maybe Nick Taylor could be one of those pieces.
Yeah, hopefully so. He's a multi-year guy. He's a younger guy, and he's flashed some things in Zach Alley's system. So let's hope that he takes another step and contributes tonight in Provo. But yeah, we're going to need some faces stepping up. There's no doubt about it. This is going to be a challenge. BYU is. They're a balanced offense. So I'm intrigued to see if the defense rebounds. We talked about the tackling deficiencies. We spent a lot of time this week talking about that. That's what this is going to come down to. I mean, if you can get down to single digit missed tackles in today's game, from a technique standpoint and on down the line, that's going to serve you really well and give you a chance to have some success. And it's going to have to start tonight against BYU, against a very physical running game with a physical quarterback and a physical featured back and LJ Martin. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah, and for West Virginia too, the quarterback spot, we don't really know what's going to happen there. Jalen Henderson has been ruled out as of Wednesday night, so most could probably assume that Khalil Wilkins will be in line to get his first career start. And if that is the case, boy, what a way to be thrown into the wolves there against that big crowd, that big time atmosphere Friday night on a short week. That's a tough ask, but we'll have to see what happens. We'll probably see multiple quarterbacks as we've talked about. That's been the case every week. But we're going to get to a quick break here, and on the other side, we'll get Phil in the building to get his thoughts on this matchup and if the Mountaineers do have a chance to pull off the upset of number 23 BYU. Hang tight. We'll be back here with Phil on ITG.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
Back in the gun here, and we have the man in the building. It is Phil Steele. Phil, welcome back to the show as we get ready to dive into another week of college football here, and feel free to promote anything you got going on over at the website.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, on the website, a nice big winning week for the Phil Steele Plus Tour with selections. It's absolutely free. Just go to philsteele.com. Right at the top, you'll see the Phil Steele Plus Tour. It's on YouTube. Take the tour and get yourself 6 free selections this week, 5 free quick hitters, and once again, all absolutely free. A nice 4-2 week last week, 4-1 for the quick hitters, and 3-2 for the FCS plays. So a big winning week. Check it out, all free, philsteele.com.
Well, let's start off with some top 25 action. We're going to look down in the SEC. Vandy still rolling, some believing, some not. The Commodores sitting there at 5-0. Meanwhile, they're heading to Tuscaloosa to take on Bama. You called that one against Georgia last week with the Tide. Big win for them on the road. Now they're home as a double-digit favorite. Vandy's getting no love. How do you see this thing playing out here, Phil?
Yeah, and boy, how do you go against Diego Pavia as an underdog? I mean, this guy just does it for Vanderbilt each and every game that they're a dog. They're 5-0. Straight up and 4-1 ATS this year. And Pavi is having a great season. But I think the fact that Vanderbilt knocked off Alabama last year will have Alabama, which is off that big win over Georgia like they were last year. This time, I think Alabama, with a 5-0 Vanderbilt coming to town, the team that beat them last year, will be fully prepared. And frankly, Alabama just has the better athletes across the board. You know, you go back to Vanderbilt's game against Virginia Tech, they trailed that 20-10 at the half, an amazing second half. And what we saw then was Virginia Tech got completely outplayed the next week by Old Dominion. And then South Carolina was 7-7 in the first quarter. South Carolina lost their starting quarterback, Lenora Sellers, and Vanderbilt rolled there. I think in this game, as much as I love the story of Vanderbilt and, you know, talking to Clark Lee, they're a very confident team. I just think Alabama is one of the best teams in the country at home, will not look past Vanderbilt. I like Alabama minus the points here.
Phil, let's go to Miami and Florida State here. Miami coming off a bye week, off a win over Florida. Florida State feeling probably a little salty about that double overtime loss to Virginia. Quite an interesting matchup here with how these two teams are running this game. So what do you see happening here between the Canes and the Noles?
Yeah, Florida State's offense on a roll this year, averaging 600 yards per game. And this is one where I'm going to say let's not overreact to last week's results. I know after Florida State lost last week to Virginia, you're thinking, okay, Miami definitely. And I think the game might have been closer to pick 'em had Florida State won last week. So you're getting a little extra line value in the fact that they are plus 4.5 for this one. And you also have one where the home team has done extremely well, as has the underdog. You look at the underdog in this series, they're 14-6 against the spread, 9 outright upsets. The home team's been doing well, and Castellanos in that offense, I think we'll be able to move the ball on a very good Miami defense, which is holding opponents to 140 yards per game below their average. You know, my computer actually has Florida State winning the game outright by 5 points. So I'm going to go with Florida State to possibly pull the upset here.
So we're going to jump into the Big 12, and we're going to start off with a doozy. Iowa State sitting at number 14 in the country, unbeaten at 5-0. Boy, what a journey they've been on. It started in Ireland, and they've survived all these battles since, and they've even dominated sometimes along the way. They are on the road at Nippert against a sleeping giant, maybe in Cincinnati at 3-1. You warned us this offseason that Cincinnati could be your sleeper pick by virtue of their schedule. And this might be one of the tougher portions of it, obviously. At home against a ranked Iowa State team, they're actually a slight favorite. Brendan Sorsby might be the best player nobody's talking about in the Big 12, running that Cincinnati offense, which has been very effective. This has storylines all over the place, this football game. Phil, what do you see playing out in Cincinnati between Iowa State and the Bearcats?
Yeah, I think you have two go-with teams here. As you mentioned, I thought Cincinnati would be the sleeper in the Big 12 this year. And you go back, it's not just the schedule. It's by far Coach Satterfield's best team he's put on the field. His first two teams, extremely inexperienced. This year he's got a top 25 team in experience level. You got Sorsby, a quarterback, and Iowa State just lost their top 2 cornerbacks. They're going to be out for this game, so you got to think Sorsby will be able to take advantage of some of that. But I still think Iowa State, one of the best, if not the best team in the Big 12. They survived the Ireland Gauntlet, took a fresh breath, got the bye week, and looked great last week against Arizona. They just crushed Arizona 39-14. I think they're a complete team. And remember last year, Iowa State's defense lost like 6 or 7 starters during the course of the year. So this is deja vu all over again for Matt Campbell. But they survived. They still got to the Big 12 title game last year, even with the injuries. And I think last year's injuries were even more than what this year's injuries are. So as high as I am on Cincinnati, I think they're going to finish off the season strong and be one of the teams that finish in the upper half of the Big 12. I'm going to go with Iowa State to go on the road and get the win here.
Let's go to Waco as K-State rolls in to take on the Baylor Bears. Baylor's offense has been really explosive this year, putting up a bunch of yards, a bunch of points. Kansas State finally got that bad taste out of their mouth their last time out against UCF. It looks like they're about a touchdown underdog here, 6.5, depending on where you look. Can Kansas State pull off the upset and maybe start to become a little bit more dangerous in the Big 12?
Yeah, and we've seen teams that lose in Ireland usually go through a slump. Florida State last year, for example, and Kansas State definitely went through that, going 1-3, and their one win was over North Dakota by 3, a game they barely pulled out. But
let's keep in mind the Arizona game was a non-conference game. So when you look at K-State this year, they're actually 1-1 in Big 12 play, still alive, and showed a lot last week, I thought, with 21 first downs to 13 against UCF. Getting Dylan Edwards back at running back was huge. He have missed basically the first 4 games. Had 166 yards rushing last week. So I do think K-State's going to be a much better team in the second half of the year. But I also like this Baylor team with the offense. And Sawyer Robertson, 17 touchdown passes, just 3 interceptions this year. This guy is on fire. I'm surprised Dave Aranda's defense has given opponents 58 yards per game above their average this year. But I'm going to lean with Baylor in this one. The spread, I think, is accurate. I'd favor Baylor by about 7. They're 6.5-point favorites, so not a great game to wager on. And I think Baylor does come out of here with the win.
Well, Arizona jumped out to that fast start at 3-0, but they got a taste of reality on the road, as you talked about, against Iowa State last week. Noah Fafita still playing pretty effective football. After a sore loss like that, maybe facing Oklahoma State at home is just the tonic you need. Oklahoma State with all its struggles, but there's a big number being laid there, over 20 points, as I saw it. Arizona favored against Oklahoma State. What do you see playing out there?
Yeah, I think it's a get-right game for Arizona. And when you look at the start of the year, they had a favorable schedule, taking on Hawaii, Weber State, and a Kansas State team that was at the end of a 4-game gauntlet and won all 3 games. And in fact, the Arizona game or the Kansas State game wasn't anywhere near as close as the final score. K-State got like a 70-yard touchdown run and I believe it was a botched field or a botched snap on a punt for 10 points to make that thing 23-17. They had a 21-8 first down edge. And I watched Oklahoma State get dominated by Tulsa. I watched them get absolutely destroyed by Oregon. Yes, they got the coaching change bounce last week and were competitive against Baylor, only losing by 18 at home. But now going on the road, taking on an Arizona team. And, the thing with Noah Fafita this year, he's actually, last year he just basically was looking for Tatori McMillan each and every throw almost. This year he's got a more balanced offensive attack. And I like the way Mahdi is running the football, the transfer from the Sun Belt Conference. So I think add it all up, I'll lay the points here. I've seen Oklahoma State get annihilated before, and this could be another one this week.
Texas Tech and Houston. Obviously, the Cougars had that miraculous comeback victory over Oregon State last week, winless Oregon State, that is. But as you mentioned last week, that might be a little deceiving with their record. Texas Tech, they look legit, Phil. I mean, I always am hesitant to get on board with these teams that load up on transfer portal guys, but this defense looks legit, and they finally may have a team that is complete to go with that offense. What do you expect here between the Red Raiders and the Cougars?
Yeah, Texas Tech looked great against Utah. Do keep in mind, though, that game was 10-10 in the fourth quarter. And then when Morton went out, Hammond came in. It sort of reminded me a little bit of the LSU Texas A&M game last year, where LSU was winning at the half. Texas A&M lost their quarterback. Marcel Reed entered the lineup. He was a mobile quarterback, and LSU wasn't quite prepared for it. And all of a sudden, A&M rolled in the second half. Will Hammond's legs really did a lot, I think, in that game against Utah, and spurred him to the big win, 34-10. I really like this Houston team, and I thought they weren't going to look ahead to this one, but maybe they did a little bit last week. They survived, which is big, but being at home with that defense, and like I've mentioned before, Houston had a losing record last year, 4-8, but their defense held opponents to 75 yards per game below their average, number 13 in the country. So the defense was there. They just didn't have an offense. Now they've got Connor Wegman. They've got Dean Connors, who I thought was Rice's best player. So they have an offense to go with the defense. You mentioned, Schuyler, Texas Tech now has a defense to go with that offense. So
yeah,
I think it should be a good game. The fact that the spread's double digits, I think Houston makes a game of this. And I'm going to go with the underdog in this one.
We have Colorado at TCU, two teams that seem to be in very different places. Though Colorado gave the old college try last week against BYU, they jumped out to that early lead. They couldn't hold on. Meanwhile, TCU, what surprised me about that game at Arizona State, Phil? They fell, but Josh Hoover turned the football over 2 times in the final 3 plays of the game. That's not who he is. This is a really good TCU team. Do you expect them to rebound against a Colorado team that is still trying to find out who they are?
Yeah, and I think when you look at Colorado, even last year, not quite as good on the road as they are at home. And this year they lost at Houston by 16. Caden Salter made a couple of big mistakes at the end of the game. Who knows? Maybe he got in the coach's doghouse for that. He had one throw where it was in, I believe he took a sack and the player was wide open. Then, of course, he had the game-ending interception in that one. So they still, a couple of weeks ago, they started Ryan Staub. I don't think they have confidence in the quarterback situation there. And as you mentioned, TCU looked to be on their way to a win over Arizona State, leading that thing 17-0. And of course, dominated North Carolina in the opener. They had those two big pass plays to McAllister to get past Smoo, 35-24. So I think TCU's a better team. They're at home, and Colorado not as good on the road. I'll lay the 13.5 in this one with TCU.
Kansas lost in a shootout last week. That was an exciting game to watch between them and Cincinnati at home. UCF also coming off a loss to Kansas State. So got a couple of teams that are trying to look back to getting into the win column. I know the Knights have kind of a little bit of issues at quarterback in terms of those guys being healthy. Don't know what the status is of Ja'Cory Brown going into this one, but who do you feel like gets back in the win column this week?
Yeah, and I think at home in Bright House, UCF is a much tougher team. We saw it against North Carolina 2 weeks ago. The quarterback situation is a little bit of concern. They've got three potential guys that could play, but I believe they're all banged up as it is. But I think when you look at these two teams, I would favor UCF by a little bit. I'm a little surprised they're a 4.5-point dog in the game. You go back to the Kansas-Missouri game, and as much as Kansas probably should have covered that game, Missouri got a late touchdown. Missouri did have a 28-13 first down edge. And even the Kansas-West Virginia game, Kansas only had a 19-18 first down edge in that one. So they're a team that's good. They've got Jalen Daniels, but I'm going to go with the home underdog in this one.
The main event, Phil. Here we go. West Virginia on the road Friday night tonight under the lights in Provo, making our first ever trip in the foothills of the Wasatch Mountains. BYU, Jay Hill has really reinvented that culture defensively as to who they are. It's not that long ago. People forget they were struggling mightily on the defensive side of the football. Jay Hill's inserted. He's brought in from Weber State. He fixes things for Kalani Sitake. He's changed that culture. Last year, they finished number one in the Big 12 in total defense. This year, through 4 games, they lead the Big 12 in total defense. That is the challenge that West Virginia is tasked with. You won't be starting veteran Jalen Henderson at quarterback. He's been ruled out for the week, so it will be one of the younger guys. The things we've talked about that you can build on for West Virginia. It looks like we have a chance to get Ty Edwards back for the first time since he went for 140 plus against Pitt. West Virginia quietly is number 3 in the Big 12 running the football. West Virginia quietly number 2 in the Big 12 in runs of 10 plus yards, trying to develop some element of rhythm. So can West Virginia go into Provo and maybe Zach Alley can confuse this freshman quarterback with a few looks, maybe put the football in harm's way, which he hasn't so far? This is a big number, 20 and a half, 19 and a half, depends where you look. I don't know what number you got there, Phil, but BYU's laying a big number for obvious reasons. What do you see unfolding with West Virginia's trip to Provo?
Yeah, I think it's strength against strength here, unfortunately for West Virginia, and the fact that they want to run the football. That's when they're at their best. And BYU actually has an excellent run defense, holding opponents to 76 yards per game, just 2.5 yards per carry. Of course, got the altitude advantage, which is always a big plus for BYU, especially if you've never been there before, like West Virginia hasn't. And this BYU team doesn't strike me as one that's going to get big distance on a lot of teams this year. I know they beat East Carolina by 21 on the road. The Stanford game, they won by 24 at home, but Stanford was actually driving late in the game. But I think when you look at the matchup, I do feel BYU wins the game, and I think you guys do as well. But the spread is up there at 19.5. So I don't have anything to say spread-wise in the game. I think BYU will be able to win this game. And hopefully for West Virginia's case, a lot of teams in the altitude wear down in that fourth quarter. That may be when the game's decided spread-wise. So we'll see how that happens. But I don't like the fact that West Virginia is going up against a really good run defense here.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an uphill battle in this game, obviously, with a little bit of banged up guys on the offensive side, especially at that quarterback spot. But, Phil, I don't know if you heard earlier in the week, during his radio show, Coach Rodriguez made a pretty bold statement, but I guess it's not bold because if you know Rich Rod that he's going to have these big dreams and goals and expectations for his team, he says that by year 5, he believes West Virginia will be playing for national championship. Now, whether that's actually in the game or vying to get into the college football playoff or getting deep into that CFP, I don't know, but he believes that that could be the case. What do you feel like could be the expectations realistically from your standpoint in the first 5 years of this regime here with Rich Rod?
I think Rich Rod can get it done, and be playing in the Big 12 gives you that opportunity. I think of the Big 12, it's a wide open conference. There's no longer a Texas or an Oklahoma here. So why not West Virginia? We've seen Arizona State rise from the ashes and come up. And if you win the Big 12, you're in the playoff. And if you make the playoff, especially with Rich Rod's offense, I think that offense can move on anybody, especially if they're healthy, unlike this year. And especially if they have a veteran team and players that are built or brought in for the offense and have been there. I would agree. I think West Virginia has that opportunity to advance deep into the playoffs in a few years. Just this first year with so many transfers and the schedule they have to play and so many transfers in after the spring, you just figured it was going to be a tough year this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. A little bit of optimism to end this segment here with Phil. And I gotta agree with you, Phil. I mean, I think it's just going to take a little bit of time. You get some of those homegrown talents, those guys you bring out of high school and develop them that really fit the system. You're not trying to teach guys new habits that come from 2 or 3 different schools before you got here to Morgantown. So we'll see how it all pans out. But Phil, we thank you once again for coming on here to talk some football with us here this week.
Hey, always enjoy talking football with you guys. Thanks for having me on today.
There you go, Phil Steele. You can catch his stuff on the website. And again, go take that Phil Steele Plus tour as well. Hang tight on the other side. Jed and I will get into our picks for this week's game.
When the sun's just rising and the work won't wait, you need the equipment that works just as hard as you do. Johnson Equipment delivers power, performance, and reliability day in, day out. Whether you're plowing fields, hauling loads, or planting the future, our tractors are built to take it and then some. Strong, reliable, ready. 0% financing available for up to 84 months on select models.
Johnson Equipment, farming made easy.
Get all your Mountaineer gear in WVU apparel at the Book Exchange. They're the locally owned and operated retailer with more than 90 years of selling everything you need for game day and everything else you need to show you're the ultimate WVU fan. Shop at their 2 locations at downtown Morgantown or Evansdale on Pattison Drive, or online at bookexchangewv.com.
When shopping online at bookexchangewv.com, be sure to enter code INTHEGUN20 at checkout for an awesome savings of 20%. That's right, 20%.
All right, it's time to close out the show here on ITG with our weekly pick'ems, our prop bets. As we talked about earlier in the show, I won a clean 3 for 3. I don't know if that's going to happen 2 straight weeks, but I'll give it my best shot. Jed, you've got to get a little catching up to do, just saying. So let's see if you can get back on track this week. What do we got?
I do. All right. All right. BYU leads the Big 12 in rushing at just over 250 yards a game. WVU has allowed 242 each of the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to lay a number of 200 on this. Do you think BYU will run for 200-plus yards?
Oh, I'm going to go no, they don't. I think it's going to be a pretty balanced attack. I think Bear Bachmeier's going to do his thing. And I think after the last 2 weeks, Zach Alley is going to have some answers and get this team ready to go. I don't think that we're going to see 3 straight performances like that against the run. I think that's something that you, as you would say, Zach would probably take very personal. So I don't see it happening. I think they could maybe push that number 180 or 185, but getting over 2 Bills 3 straight weeks against this unit, I can't see it happening as good as BYU has been.
I'm going to say no as well. I just have to believe that the tackling will improve.
Can't be worse, right?
Yeah, if the tackling improves, everything else kind of falls into place because so many of the other things it's not like we're missing a ton of run fits or MAs. It's just technical stuff. It's old school, get them to the ground. And the staff sees that. Zach Alley sees that. That's something that's being worked on, addressed. So I'm going to say no as well. But I'll tell you what else, Schuyler, that bodes well. If neither one of us think they're going to do that, that means it's a competitive football game because
Yes.
if they get in control of the game, what are they going to start doing? They're going to start running the football at a higher rate. So, yeah, let's say we'll both say no. Okay, BYU quarterback Bear Bachmeier is one of 5 P4 starters to not throw a pick yet. 90 attempts. Question number 2 is pretty simple. Much like last week with Devin Dampier, will West Virginia intercept Bear Bachmeier?
I really want to go yes because I think what Zach can do is really confuse quarterbacks, especially young guys. I just I can't see it happening this week. As you mentioned in the preview, their coordinator does a really good job of putting him in good situations. And I think that they'll understand that this week with Zach, that it's going to be more complex than maybe what he's seen the first 4 games. So I think they'll do a lot to keep him out of those difficult decisions. So I'll say no, they don't get an interception.
I like your thinking. This is just a product of me watching. I've watched a lot of tape on the kid. That 0 to me is misleading next to his name. He has put the football in harm's way and toyed with fire. He has gotten away with some. There are ways to confuse him. Now, again, I understand that Aaron Roderick, their O coordinator, is going to do all he can to game plan around us confusing him. I just think there might be some circumstances in which we do, and we get that quick look, and he gets off that quick look, and that's when he becomes the freshman. He has that first initial look, and if you can get him off that, if you can choke down his throwing lane and get him off that initial read, that's when on tape he becomes a freshman. I think we might be able to get one. So I'm gonna go ahead and roll the dice and say yes, we will. Which leads us into question 3, which gets trickier. You could not have 2 teams more disparate in terms of turnover margin than West Virginia and BYU. West Virginia toward the bottom of the Big 12 at 15, BYU in turnover margin. West Virginia or BYU leads the Big 12 in turnover margin. West Virginia has turned the football over 9 times. There's not a power conference school with more turnovers than West Virginia. BYU, meanwhile, has turned the football over only once, and they have 3 straight games in which they have not suffered a turnover. So let's massage this turnover margin question. You can look at that a couple different ways. Boy, BYU just never turns the ball over, and that's not going to change, or they're due for a couple turnovers. The numbers always balance themselves out, as the football gods like to tell you, right? Will the turnover margin, here's the question, will the turnover margin be a draw? Will it be even or better for WVU?
Oh, man.
Will it be even or will it favor WVU? Either or.
That's tough. That might be the toughest one this year.
So in other words, if BYU wins it, you lose.
Yeah. I'll go with BYU favored, I guess, just because I guess I'll go off my prediction of WVU not picking off Bachmeier. And I think with the 9 turnovers for West Virginia, I mean, you could look at it a different ways too. I mean, you had the fumble issues against Robert Morris. You had Scotty Fox making 2 freshman mistakes. But if Khalil Wilkins plays and starts, I mean, you run the risk of that happening again. So yeah, I'll lean with BYU getting the favor here, and maybe Khalil puts the ball in harm's way. I don't think they're going to throw it a ton, to be honest with you, Jed. But, so I mean, I'm really taking my shot here, but maybe they cough one up in the run game too. I don't know.
So will the turnover margin be a draw or better for WVU? You say no, because you're going with BYU on that. I'll go ahead and say yes. I'll be different. I'll say yes. Yeah, the nature of 9 turnovers, it's easy to say, well, that's because you're playing 4 quarterbacks or multiple quarterbacks, or there's no continuity in offense, and that's going to, of course, lead to more turnovers. Well, that's in part true, but Also, there have been aberrations. Like I go back to the Robert Morris game, and you mentioned Scotty Fox, that 2-play sequence, just unusual things happening in clusters that have driven that number up higher than it has to be or higher than it should be. I will say this, Rich's first year in 2001, the turnovers per game we suffered with that 3-8 team were still the highest turnover per game rate West Virginia offensively has suffered, or West Virginia as a team has suffered this century.
Wow.
So this is something I think we have a better chance than that year. That continued throughout the course of the year. I think this is a different animal. You have a chance to maybe stabilize this. Hopefully that stabilization starts in this tough environment at BYU. And that's one of the reasons the game's closer than most expect, is because it starts there. Because if it doesn't start there and you get out of hand, putting the football in harm's way, giving that BYU offense short fields and keeping that crowd full throat, live and into it, this could get ugly. That's why I don't think we can allow it to happen. But it's something that absolutely needs avoided at all costs. So I'll go the other way with that one.
To be honest with you, I was a little shocked when you said 9 in that it was the most in Power 4. It just doesn't feel like 9. I don't know if that's because of all the 3-and-outs they've had, the amount of punts they've had. It just doesn't feel like 9. And I guess, again, like you said, when you have the 2 Scotty Fox picks, you have the fumble issues, Robert Morris, maybe that's what does it. And the Nico interception at the end of the game against Ohio. But it just doesn't feel like you have the same mistakes happening, which I guess could be a good thing because, Rich has always said you don't want to commit the same mistakes over and over. It doesn't feel like there's repeat offenders in those 9 turnovers. But, yeah, it's an interesting stat.
We've won the turnover margin twice. Do you know which 2 games it was?
Well, let's see. Would it be Utah?
Utah's one.
Okay. And it wasn't Kansas, I don't think. Pitt.
Pitt -1.
Ah. Oh, Ohio. The 3 interceptions.
Plus 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, we forced those 3 picks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting that you win the turnover battle against Utah. But outside of that one turnover, they were just extremely efficient. I mean, that was a really clean game that they had, unfortunately.
It certainly was.
So
it certainly was.
Well, that's going to do it for this week on ITG. Well, technically, we don't turn the page completely until the recap is done, and we will have that some point this weekend. Might be coming Saturday night, maybe Sunday morning. Either way, we'll have the recap of what happened between the Mountaineers and the Cougars coming up on deck here on the podcast. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Be sure to go back and watch Barbecuing with the Beer Truck earlier this week, and we also had the game preview, breaking down the matchup. Phil gave a lot of interesting nuggets on both sides of the football. We even had a BYU fan commenting and saying that we did a great job, or probably more so Jed than anybody, breaking down the matchup, but saying that he learned about his football team more than he ever has from an opponent podcast. So love that little comment, and we'll take that all the way to the bank. So thank you guys for watching, and as always, be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. Thank you, and take care, everybody. You've been In the Gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.